Hi everybody, I'll speak English today. We already got the introduction. I'm Dr. St. Cyr. I'm a family medicine doctor from America. I've been in China for 7 years. I'm here with my wife and my now 7-month-old boy, little Alex right there. And I work at BJU, Beijing United, and like she said, I do a lot of public health speaking, and I do a lot of writing. And I'm really interested in this topic of making people feel that they're healthy. I chose Yes You Can. That was the campaign slogan for President Obama in his first campaign. And it's just a message of positivity and hope that I think a lot of us don't necessarily have in Beijing. And I want to, by the end of the talk, make people feel that you can be healthy in Beijing. Let me just ask a question, first of all. If I gave everybody 10,000 renminbi right now, you want to do only health, you could only use that money for something for your health for the next 12 months, what would you buy? What would you spend that on? I want you to think about that because I want you to ask again at the end. But I ask my patients that at the health checks. I don't give them yuan, but I ask them, what do you have as your health goal for the next 12 months? And it makes them think about, well, what's unhealthy about my life? And the point of the talk is I see a lot of misperceptions about common things we read about and hear about in Beijing. And there's three things. There's misperceptions about our health. And I want to go over the misperceptions, and I also want to provide evidence-based information about that. And mostly, I want people to feel empowered, to feel that you have more control over your health in China than you think you do. So I wanted to start that way by going over this thing called the Global Burden of Disease Index. This is something from the World Health Organization. They do every country in the world, and they gather all the health data. And this graph talks about the leading risk factors from 2010, the most recent, that cause disease. And everyone's always worried about air pollution and food safety, of course. Those are by far the number one things that my patients, the people on my blog and Weibo, Chinese people, expats, they're always worried about those two things the most. But what's the number one risk factor in China? Dietary risks. So what you put into your body from food, by far the biggest problem for disease in China than anything else. And the blue, the darker blue is heart disease, okay? So all of these darker blues you see are heart disease. So the big thing is heart disease by far is the number one killer in every country around the world. And clearly, if you just look visually at the graph, if you did everything you could to decrease your risk of heart disease, then you would be a very healthy country, a very healthy person. What's number two? High blood pressure, and by far, of course, causes heart disease. Heart attacks, strokes, that's all heart disease, right? Smoking is number three in the number one the risk factors. So here's finally air pollution. Air pollution, many people would think is number one, but it's way, way down. By far, these other graphs are much more important. There's glucose for diabetes, things like that. So just right there, this is the data that shows just automatically that air pollution isn't really necessarily the number one risk factor for everybody. So let's go over these in order a little bit. Dietary risks. If you take care of that, then you're already on your great path for good health. So this idea of food safety, we read about these scandals all the time. Yo and gunner oil and exploding watermelons, and they're really interesting if they weren't so scary. But, so what did I just show? So those issues aren't what are causing heart disease. So what's the number one cause of heart disease in China? The World Bank, for example, they think, and I quote, they thought salt by far was China's number one modifiable, preventable risk factor in China. So the big things are too much fat in our diets, too much salt in the Chinese diet especially. It's more than twice that is recommended. And not enough fruits and vegetables. These are the basics. Those things right there are causing much of the deaths in China. The salt we just talked about, what can we do about the salt? So we're talking about, you have honey, what can we do about our health? So a lot of students, for example, they eat a lot of instant noodles, right? So I guarantee you those things from 7-Eleven and you just pour the hot water, that's what I lived on in college too. There's probably 2 or 3 grams of salt right there in each of those containers of instant noodles. So if you just thought about how maybe you could do a little bit less of that, that automatically would decrease your salts. Soy sauce, of course. There's a lot of salt in soy sauce. So what you could do, especially at home, you could buy the low salt soy sauce containers. So those things are much less than you want. So, and fruits and vegetables, kind of the basics. Just focusing on that. That by itself can make you healthier automatically. So it's not necessarily food safety. These scandals are really, they're distracting us from the main things. Like, why isn't it the front page news that the average person in China has 12 grams of salt every day? Why are we reading about these food safety things all the time? We need to focus on the things that actually are hurting us. More things about nutrition, easy, safe things to do, to take control. I really want you to feel that you have control. You're not helpless just because of this latest headline. You can do a lot of things. One of the most obvious things is fish oil, so omega-3 fish oil. Just keep that in mind. Salmon, sardines, shrimp, the fatty fish have a lot of healthy fat. There's good fat and bad fat. Salmon especially has lots of healthy fat. People in Scandinavia and Norway, the more salmon they have, it dramatically reduces their risk of heart disease. Literally, if you have more than 2 servings a week of salmon, that decreases your risk of a heart attack or heart disease more than 40%, almost half. And the more you eat, the better, actually. So if you're not having any of this type of fish in your diet right now, an easy thing to do for your health is to add this type of fatty fish to your diet, at least once a week. More is better. If you can't find the fish, you could, of course, supplement omega-3 fish oil. A lot of people do that as a supplement. It's not as good, it's not as effective as the actual fish, but it's better than nothing. Other things you could do. So yogurt, swanai, is very healthy. A lot of students don't have breakfast. And there's lots of studies that show breakfast is the most important thing, especially for students. If you don't have breakfast, you actually do worse in school. You tail off in the morning, and you actually have worse grades and worse memory if you don't have breakfast in the morning. So maybe that's one way to think about it. And yogurt is the superfoods, especially the probiotics, the healthy bacteria in yogurt. It's very healthy for your stomach. People that actually have yogurt every day versus people that don't, you actually lose weight a little bit. So you can actually lose weight just by having yogurt every day. And top it off with a bunch of berries. Berries, especially blueberries, are a superfood. A new study this week just showed blueberries decrease your risk of diabetes by almost 20%. So super yogurt and super blueberries every day, and you're automatically more healthy than you were yesterday. So rice, let's talk about rice. Brown rice, rice people of much of Asia, but the diabetes is a rapidly growing epidemic all over the world. And 80%, some people think 80% of the lifestyle diseases, the modern diseases, diabetes, heart disease, you can prevent almost 80% of those diseases by following simple lifestyle things that we're talking about here. Not doing the exercise, doing the diet issues. For example, here, diet is a sugar thing, of course, right? But actually it's not a thing, it's a starch thing. So if you have too much starch, especially, or too much of anything, you're going to develop diabetes more than if you don't. So brown is always better than white. One of the take-home messages. If you could have more brown rice instead of white rice, that automatically decreases your risk of sugar rush and diabetes in the future, maybe even up to 20%. So if in a little bit of your daily routine, you could have more dark bread than white bread, whole wheat pasta instead of white pastas, and if you could just, at the very least, switch to brown rice at home or when you're in a restaurant, think about those things. Anything white, of course, is totally processed, and you've lost the fiber, you've lost the healthy nutrients. So the original is always better than the processed white. So that's one. These are some basic things we all can do, and none of them are expensive. Blue skies. It's actually a very blue sky today. Talking, always worried about air pollution. And people think, oh, Beijing, it's so bad that it doesn't really matter if you smoke. It's basically the same thing, right? And it's actually, the good news is it's not true. So The average day in Beijing, there's good days and bad days, of course, right? The average day, the equivalent PM 2.5 that we were already talking about, this tiny, tiny particle that you can breathe in and cause health problems. The day in Beijing that you're breathing in, it's equivalent to not a pack a day of cigarettes, not 10 cigarettes. It's not even 1 cigarette a day. An average day in Beijing is 1/6 of 1 cigarette. That's the average PM 2.5. Most people still don't believe it. They get really angry. They're like, no, it's like a pack a day. Like, I'm sorry, it's not. But so what are the 2 main points about that? Well, one of the main points is that smoking is really bad. And let me first show you another graph that kind of shows this. This is a graph showing lung cancer rates and comparing pollution to smoking. Okay? So a pack-a-day smoker has a relative risk, is RR, of 20 times getting lung cancer over their lifetime. A 2-pack-a-day person is over 30 times the risk of developing lung cancer. Where are all the articles ever published on air pollution in terms of the risk of developing lung cancer and air pollution? It's way, way, way down here in the corner. They even had to blow it up for you. The relative risks of air pollution, chronic disease, and lung cancer are about 1.2, 1.3. The World Health Organization actually this week said air pollution causes cancer. And we sort of knew that, but now it's official. But a lot of the researchers are saying, and what I want to let people realize is that the individual risk, yes, is real, but it's low. And it's low compared to many of the things that I've already talked about. So this relative risk of 1.2, 1.3 of causing lung cancer and disease. Again, one of the take-home messages is anybody that's smoking, even 1 cigarette a day, even a part-time smoker, things like that, you are worrying about the wrong thing if you're focused and scared about air pollution. You just need to focus on quitting smoking. And 50% of the men in China smoke. This is a serious problem in China. So that the relative risk maybe isn't as serious as you think. And the other good thing is, a lot of things we can do about it. It's still a serious thing, but there's a lot of things we can do. And one of the things, here's me with wearing, don't forget the bike helmet, right? In China, very few people in China wear bike helmets. So here's a little public safety thing for you right here. But what we can do, a good air pollution mask does work. They actually did the best studies here in Beijing. They were walking around Second Ring Road and testing people with different masks. And the ones that wore this really good mask, they had better blood pressure, they had better heart rates, they had better inflammation markers. So these things do work. It does protect yourself. But there's good masks and bad masks. So the key is to find a good mask that not only has this N95 rating. N95 literally is the standard test from America, but it literally means it filters out 95% of what you're breathing in with the mask. So 95% of course is extraordinarily good if it fits well. And I've tested things and other people have tested things. There's only a few that are really fit tested. And this one, for example, is Total Bobo. That's one of the very good ones that has fit test results, and it works in the real world. And 3M is the other big one. They're kind of the gold standard. Total Bobo, 3M, Vogue Mask, I Can Breathe. All of these have really good data to support it. So they're much better than just grabbing a surgical mask from 7-Eleven or something. So I recommend everyone just, at the very least, just carry around a mask. And anytime the pollution is really bad, maybe over 200, you want to choose a cutoff. Just why not wear a mask? Why not decrease your exposure as much as you can? And the other big things you can do are the indoor air purifiers. I think they're a good idea, at the very least in your bedroom. If you have to do one thing, especially if you have a child, you should take care of your bedroom. 1/3 of our lives is sleeping, don't forget, and 90% of our lives is indoors. So at the very least, get an air purifier for your bedroom. And you've automatically taken care of 1/3 of your exposure to air pollution automatically. And if you cover the rest of your house, a good air purifier can get rid of 80% of the air pollution. So you could literally breathe better with those things. They don't have to be super expensive. There's There's this Fulbright 2 months been working on, literally, you just put a good filter on over a fan, and you can make your own air purifier for under 200 RMB. I think it's particlecounting.tumblr.com, but basically it's a do-it-yourself filter, and it actually does work a little bit. So for student budget, you can think about that. So you can do things about protecting yourself in China. There's lots of things you can do that aren't necessarily expensive. Other things you can do, no matter what, you have to think of inflammation, air pollution, food, toxins, no matter what, it's inflammation. You have to protect yourself. You have to be super healthy here in Beijing. The basics, it's still the basics. Exercise is still basic. It lowers your risk for heart disease. Again, which is the #1 risk for, the #1 problem in China was heart disease. So dancing. So many students don't get as much exercise as your parents and grandparents. You know, you should be out in the parks at night with your parents and grandparents dancing and singing and things like that. It's very charming. It's like one of the best things in I think. It's very charming and it's very healthy. So get out there and dance and have some fun. You can bike in Beijing. There's some good studies, mostly from Europe, that show the heart benefits of biking in Beijing are still much, much greater than the risks of air pollution and traffic and things like that. So it's still much healthier to bike and to jog and things like that outside. If it's really bad out, then just wear a mask and still bike and still jog. Sleeping is also very important just for your immune system, for your health. And it also prevents colds. They've actually done a study, a really strange study, where they put the flu virus up people's noses. And the ones that got less than 6 hours of sleep, they were 3 times more likely to develop the flu and the cold than people that got 8 hours of sleep. So sleep is important for your immune system. And just, I want people to feel positive. One of the points is to feel positive about Beijing. Smiling always helps. Literally, if you smile, it changes the muscles in your face, and that actually makes endorphins and it makes you feel happier. Even if it's a fake smile, smiling is actually really healthy for you. And beautiful things, it's easy to feel happy with beautiful things, like in Sonoma County where I used to live. This is my happy place. But I think everyone should have a happy place, and everyone should think about Beijing as being a beautiful place. And if you don't think that way, I want you to start thinking that way, because it literally helps your immune system just to be positive. For example, so everyone has a homework assignment. I want everyone to start taking pictures of beautiful Beijing. And I want you to start maybe sending it to my Weibo or things like that. Every day, I want you to take one picture of beautiful Beijing and send it to me, because things are more beautiful than you think if you slow down and if you stop and just look around a little bit closer. It's even better if you have an old-fashioned camera with a viewfinder, because you have to look at life a little bit differently through a viewfinder. And you might just notice something common every day going to work or in the subway, that actually, if you stop and look at it, it might be actually really beautiful. So, you as students, and you have the road ahead of you, a long road, and it's up to you how you want to live, and it's up to you for your health goals. I had that question in the beginning, what is your health goal? I'd be really interested to find out if after this talk if that changed, but I want you to think about what is your health goal? What can I do to make myself healthier? And I hope from what I've shared that it's actually much easier to do that than maybe you think you did before the talk. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.